What is up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We are here going live today, and we're going to be talking about how to overcome creative burnout so that you guys can crush it on your projects. Plus, we're getting joined by a special guest today, so you're not going to want to miss it. Let's go. All right, welcome back to the channel. I'm super excited for today's live stream. This is the second live stream ever, so I'm pretty nervous about it, but you know what? It's going to be fun. And we're actually being joined by a special guest today, my friend and fellow content creator, Zac Sopak. What's up, Zac? How is it going?
What's up, Ben? So good to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on one of your very first live streams. This is exciting, man.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good live stream. I'm excited about today's topic. I think it's going to be a good, relevant one. I know I'm somebody who has struggled with burnout a lot. And, we're going to talk about just what it is, some warning signs and how to overcome it. And I think it's going to be a good conversation. So let me go ahead and do a little screen sharing here. Awesome. Welcome to the live stream. All right, let me see if I got this right. I'm looking at the chat right now. Tiluk, I believe that's how you say your name. You sent it to me. So how's it going, Tiluk? Christian, what's up? Worship Guitar Lab, Michaela, how are you guys doing? All right, Creative Burnout. We're going to be chatting about it today. So let's go ahead and define it. What is creative burnout? No control, feeling stressed out. Zac, have you ever felt that way before in dealing with content creation?
Yes, most definitely. I think this is probably the biggest indicator for me as to like when things are out of control. Like you're on your way to burnout for sure, because probably for a myriad of factors, which I'm sure we're going to hit on. But yeah, feeling like you don't have control, feeling like things are out of your just out of your grasp, like you can't do anything about it, or you're almost like paralyzed to do anything. Yeah, that's a surefire indicator you're on your way to burnout, and you're probably in burnout, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a feeling that a lot of us can get just because, maybe we'll get just overwhelmed with the amount of stuff we've committed to doing. And so I'm just going to go ahead and go through some of these bullet points because I think we're going to be talking about it. Feeling overwhelmed from doing too much, you're spread too thin, too many commitments, you feel paralyzed, and you just start to not love your craft anymore. Mm-hmm. Those are a couple of the things that burnout is, when we experience it. It's kind of more than just being like stressed out about something. It's sort of like that moment when you just feel completely overwhelmed, right? And you just feel like you can't get anything done. And I'm just taking a quick moment to address the chat. What's up, everybody? What's up, Sahil? What's up, Elevated Lawnscapes? J Vlogs, how's it going? J Vlogs, my day's going great so far. Going great so far. Great question. We're going to get to the questions and answers in just a little bit. So getting back to creative burnout, Zac, well, first and foremost, for those of you who don't know Zac, let's talk a little bit about who Zac is, why he's here on the channel today. If you guys want to connect with Zac, you can do so at Zac Sopak on social media. But Zac and I go way back. If you guys have been on the channel for a minute, you will have seen our previous video where we recorded a podcast talking about mean comments. And so I don't know why you and I end up doing these kind of more negative topics so far, but we'll do some more positive ones soon. Yeah. But so Zac and I go way back. He's an awesome content creator, photographer, videographer, musician, designer. You do a ton of different stuff. And, I have my roots in a lot of that stuff as well. And so one way you said it before was we're sort of cut from the same cloth creatively. You've said that before, and I believe that's the case. Mm-hmm. We both have a very, similar styles, similar goals, and just, if you guys aren't subscribed to Zac, please go subscribe to Zac because he makes awesome videos. So talk to me a little bit about your YouTube journey, Zac. How's that been so far?
YouTube's been really great so far. So you and I pretty much kind of really started posting consistently around the same time last year. Um, I had wanted to do YouTube for a very long time. I had a lot of people who were super positive and just, encouraged me to do it about 3 years ago. And I did like one, maybe two videos, and then just nothing ever happened with it. And so I just kind of like let it fall to the wayside, and now started to like pick it back up once, pandemic and all that stuff happened. Had more time on my hands than I ever did. So I figured there's no excuses at this point. Just go on ahead and start doing the thing. And so it's been a really cool journey so far. I've been learning a lot. I really do genuinely have fun doing it. And my eventual goal is one day this will become a full-time job.
Awesome.
But until then, I'm just having fun and trying to just make a splash, as they say, and just have fun making videos. Try to help people out.
That's awesome. Having fun making videos and trying to help people out. That is a great goal. And that's a great, I don't know, just a great ambition to have. I believe I'm trying to do a little bit of the same stuff, just adding value to people, sharing some stuff that I've learned along the way. Hopefully being able to share some experiences even today so that you guys can avoid burnout in your lives. Cause that's something that as a content creator that's been doing this full time for years, I've hit my limits. I've hit my limits before and learned stuff from it. So today we're going to dive into that topic a little further, and it's going to be good. So moving along, we've kind of defined a little bit about what creative burnout is. And one of those biggest ones here is, getting to that point where you just don't love your craft anymore, right? Like that sucks. Maybe it's photography, maybe it's video, maybe it's YouTube, right? And you've been doing it for a while. You're not seeing growth. You're not seeing improvement. You're maybe just, trying to do, everybody in the world is saying like, post as much as you can, post as consistently as you can, and you're just feeling burnt out because you're not seeing the results, and it ends up making you not love it anymore, right? So that's one of those things that burnout can come from, even for YouTube. But moving on, let's talk a little bit about warning signs. Since we have defined what it is, let's talk about some of the warning signs that come with burnout. Not delivering. So maybe you are somebody who is trying to make a bunch of commitments and you're just not following through. You're not delivering. That could be a sign that you're starting to get a little burned out. You're looking for excuses, right? So maybe you have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of goals. They're high goals, they're big goals, great goals, but you start looking for a bunch of excuses as to why you can't or why you shouldn't and all of that. There's physical signs of creative burnout, right? And we'll talk about that in a moment. A question to ask yourself, are you genuinely happy anymore doing this stuff? Sometimes that's a great question and an indicator of burnout. And you just start to feel consumed by this burnout. So those are some warning signs. Let's chat a little bit about some of those. Zach, what are your thoughts on these warning signs of creative burnout?
Yeah, well, one of the one of the biggest warning signs, like for me personally, like those are all great indicators. I feel like for me personally, it kind of goes back to what it is when we talked about taking on too many commitments. And when you take on too many commitments, you're spreading yourself too thin. You're not giving yourself enough time. Then you're not delivering when you need to be delivering. Could be for YouTube. This could certainly be for freelance as well, like starting more in the freelance world, like myself and like you as well. And I think a lot of people starting in freelance, let's say it's a video project, you shoot it, and it's like, oh, I could have it to you in 24 hours or 48 hours. And the reality is that you can, it's just probably not going to be the best product, or you're going to kill yourself trying to get it done quicker than you really should be taking. Like you should always allow yourself more time with all of your commitments. And then also be really honest with yourself, understanding like what are your limits that you do have with your time. Like there's a reason for me when I commit, or at least in my YouTube journey, I have not made a commitment that I'm going to post a video every single week, or I'm going to post every Tuesday and every Thursday and do a live stream every Friday, because one, I know my tendencies right now, and with YouTube not being my full-time job and I've got a lot of other stuff happening, there's a big chance that I'm not going to be able to deliver that. So I don't want to make the outward commitment to everybody to say, this is it. This is what it is. You can expect this every single time, stuff like that. So not delivering, really, it's a big one. I can relate to it. I've taken on too much before, and I've learned how to not, allow myself to get that place. Maybe don't take on as many commitments, to give yourself a bit of that buffer, bit of a space to just have some extra time in case you need it.
Right. Yeah. I think it's huge. Like I see sometimes on creators channels, and granted, you have to keep in mind context, right? So like I'll look at certain YouTube creators that have been doing this for years, like 10 plus years. They have millions of subscribers, and they'll put on their header something like new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, like you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like they're at a place where they can realistically do that and commit to that. And that's great. But I think sometimes smaller creators and newer creators come in with those sort of expectations. And it's like, if you're working a 9-to-5 job and you have other side hustles that you're doing, and now you're trying to do YouTube, right? It's like, that can be maybe an unrealistic initial goal, but you feel this pressure because you think that's what it takes to succeed, right? And so you put this pressure on yourself. And then if you do something like that, where you're like, I'm going to post every Tuesday, Thursday, and you kind of jump the gun and you announce that to the world, then if you don't deliver, that pressure just comes down even more. And that's not fun, right? Because it's like, you feel like you're letting people down. You feel like you're not following through. And then you feel like you're not doing the thing that you think is required to make you grow. But in reality, that's not really true. Like, you just don't try to commit to something if you're not quite ready for it yet. Test the waters, figure out what your workflow is in this season. And, that's a good way to kind of avoid getting into those deliverables that you're going to fail on. Right. So that's some stuff to think about. Just for those of you who are freelancing and doing all this, it's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay. And we're going to get to that in the future. So, I saw in the comments earlier a warning sign, #Coldplay. Love it. That's awesome. So all right, let's keep moving on a little bit here. So we're going to talk about some practical steps to overcome the burnout. We've talked so far, about what is creative burnout. We've talked about some warning signs, and now we're going to get into the practical steps. Make a list, finish the easiest thing first. This is huge. I think making a list is like really important, because sometimes things will just start to pile up, right? Things will just start to pile up, and it gets a little overwhelming because you have 50 things to do. But if you just can make a list and kind of take inventory of it, figure out what's the easiest thing that I can accomplish today, and just try to cross one thing off, you'll feel so much better, so much more productive, because you're making progress. And it makes me think of, I don't know if any of you guys here in the live stream or in the replay, let me know in the comments. Do any of you guys watch The Office? The Office is an awesome show. I love The Office personally. There's a scene where Michael Scott is starting the Michael Scott Paper Company, and he's overwhelmed. He's at his house. He is overwhelmed, and Pam tells him to make a list and cross off the easiest thing first. And that's honestly a great life lesson. Sometimes we just need to make a list, and we need to cross stuff off, because you'll be surprised at, how much you actually can get done once you start. Talk about that point there. Zach, what are your thoughts on making a list?
Make a list, check it twice. No, I think
go all Santa Claus on it. I love it.
Yeah. No, lists are really great for me. I even with my days, when it's work or if it's doing some freelance stuff for YouTube, it's just good to have that structure. So that way, like for me, I know I can measure whether or not today was a win. Because if you don't have a list, or you don't know what your goals are, like you're sure. There's that old saying of like, he who has no goals is sure to achieve them. And so it's,
wow, yeah,
once you have like the goals listed out in front of you, even like small practical stuff, like, I don't know, post a new video today, or post something on Instagram, do a story, like just having a nice little checklist is really good. Cause then by the end of the day, like I'll normally have like little legal pad or like Post-its or something, and I can rip it off and like, cool, accomplished all that, throw it in the trash. And there's something satisfying about that, and really make you feel like you accomplished something with your time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's keep pushing through some of these practical tips. Another one is allow yourself more time. Another one is to remember your why. Another one is to say no. Ebbs and flows, work smarter, not harder. And we're going to break each of these things down a little bit. So, going into the allow yourself more time, I think that kind of goes into client work. It goes into YouTube. It's just whatever amount of time you think your project is going to take to accomplish. Make sure you tack on extra time so you give yourself some grace before you even start, right? I think that could be a really pivotal thing, because a lot of times we get really ambitious, right? A client comes to us and says, hey, can we get this done? And you're like, yeah, I can get it done right now. But if you do that every time because you want to be the fastest and the best at it, eventually you'll have 15 projects that you have to get done right now, and that doesn't quite work, right? So just be realistic, figure out how much hours some of this stuff takes. Like as you make a YouTube video, realistically, for the planning, the shooting, the editing, the uploading, how much time does it really take to accomplish a YouTube video? And then just allow yourself even another hour or two so that you're not stressed out while doing it, right? That's just a practical tip. Remember your why. That's the next one. Remember your why. And I think this is huge, right? Because a lot of times for myself personally, I want to talk about this one a little bit, because for me, this is a huge one. A lot of times I feel burnout because I start putting, I start losing sight of why I love to do what I do and what my goal is and what my purpose is. And so when I start looking for approval from the thing that I'm doing, whether that's YouTube or client work, like my own self-worth gets wrapped up into it. That's when I feel burnout a lot, because I put all this unnecessary pressure on myself because I'm looking for affirmation from people, not, and that's not a good place to be in, because that you'll never be fulfilled when you're in that state. And so that's a personal one for me. A lot of times when my why gets messed up, I'm no longer doing this to add value to people. I'm no longer doing this, because I love it. I'm doing it because, I get some sort of, affirmation from the comments or the likes or whatever. That's a really easy one to get wrapped up in. Mm-hmm. And you've said it before on some of your videos. It's like, what happens when you go through, you post your new Instagram photo and it just has 0 likes, no one's into it, right? Like that can affect your mood sometimes. It can affect, and it's like when you put too much into it, too much stock into that, it just is a bad place to be in. So remember your why, like, and that's why I encourage everybody who's starting YouTube or doing creative work, starting a creative business, perhaps, whether you're doing photography or video design, whatever it is, come up with your why as part of your planning process as you get started. Get a good foundation. So, this is why I do this, not just for money, not just for, affirmation or to feel good about myself, but it's, figure out a why that is going to add value to people and kind of give you some deeper purpose. And I think that is a great place to be in with that. So, say no. That's a big one, right? Say no. What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Saying no is huge. It's very, like, saying no is just as powerful as saying yes, sometimes more powerful, I feel like. Because I think there is the pressure for new creators, for up and coming creators to feel like to just always say yes to things, because it's like, oh, it's an opportunity, it's an opportunity, it's an opportunity. And to an extent, yeah, when you're just starting out, I think that's okay. But there will come a time to where you should stop saying yes to so many things. Like I did a website for some people, and it was just because I had been contracted. They asked if I could do it. It's like, yeah, I'm not really a web designer, but I'll try it. Like, and I'll put it together, and it'll probably be, better than just grabbing a random Wix template or something. So I did that, and then people found out that I did that. And then they asked me, hey, can you do this web page for me? Like, I've had like 10 people ask me, like, can you do a web page for me? And I say no, because I actually don't really enjoy making them. Like, thanks for thinking of me or considering me, but I don't really do that sort of thing. or
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge because again, what you've realized, and this is something I want to talk a little bit about too, is just for anybody out there who's experiencing burnout right now, it's not, it sucks in the moment, but we all experience burnout in our lives. And it's one of those things that, it just can happen. And it's not a bad thing that it happens, because what it does is it teaches you your limit, and it teaches you sometimes what you love and what you don't, And so like to your point, Zac, you did a website design because you have the knowledge, you have the skill, you have the creative eye for it. You have the means to, and you did it for someone, and then it was great, because you're good at it. And so other people wanted you to do it, but you didn't love it. Right. And so you learned that you didn't love it because all of these people started asking you. Probably you felt a little overwhelmed by it, and you're like, I actually don't really want to do this thing because I'm more passionate about YouTube or about photos and I want to spend my time doing that and less of this other thing. And that's honestly kind of how you get into figuring out your niche. It's kind of how you figured out how to specialize in the things that you love. And so if you guys are out there and you're experiencing some burnout, there are times where you should push through. Absolutely. There are times where you should, you just got to push through and you got to get stuff done, and you'll come out the other side stronger. So be encouraged by that, but pay attention to some of these things as you're going through them, because they're great indicators as to ultimately where you can kind of readjust and pivot and focus in on the things that you love versus the things that just add stress and whatever to your life. And again, all of this being said, it's not stress-free isn't the goal, necessarily. Like that stuff happens and it's just because you care. A lot of times the stress and the things happen is because you are actually bought in and invested into the thing that you're doing. You care about it. So, we're not saying that, there's a way to do this where you're not ever going to encounter stress or stuff like that. But burnout is that moment where you kind of get paralyzed. You get so overwhelmed that you can't push through. So, just be aware of some of that stuff as you go through it, because it's a great indicator as to, maybe what you should be focusing on more and less of. So, going back to these notes right here, ebbs and flows. All right, ebbs and flows, kind of a little interesting saying, but what I mean by that, this is something I actually learned from my dad growing up. He was talking about business, and he said that there's seasons of ebbs and flows. Ebbs and flows is like the sea, right? It's the waves crashing in and flowing back out. It's the natural flow of things. And so be aware that our lives are full of ebbs and flows of different things. So, busyness is one of those things, right? Like I'll talk to our wedding business for an example. There's seasons where we're really busy with weddings. A lot of people are getting married, and we're busy shooting them and doing all that stuff. And it's a lot of work, but we push through. And then there's seasons where, maybe it's summertime and it's really hot. We're from Florida originally. So it's like not as many people are getting married in the middle of summer because it's just really hot. And so we're not as busy, but we've worked our butts off in the spring. And now we're it's dying down. It's time to rest. And we don't want to utilize that time to try to worry about, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. We know that there's more coming in the fall as the weather gets better. And so all of that to say, there's ebbs and flows, even with YouTube, with creative projects, with your business. A lot of people are trying to hire you. There's going to be times where you have not as much going on, and that's not a bad thing. Don't take the lack of busyness as a sign of failure for your business or anything like that. Utilize that time, maximize that time to rest, maximize that time to dream. Blank space is huge. It's huge for creatives because in that blank space, you get vision. When you're busy doing stuff all the time, you're busy doing project and project and project and crossing off the list. You're not taking that time to dream new vision for your business, new vision for your channel, new vision for whatever. So when those slower times come, try to be aware of them and maximize them to rest and to get refreshed and to dream a little bit, kind of get some fresh vision for where you're going in the future. So that's what I mean by the ebbs and the flows. Zac, do you have any thoughts on that topic?
Well, you said it extremely well. Like, and I loved especially what you just said about during like the downtimes, that's where you can rest and like get new vision and refuel. Like I'm in that period like right now, to be totally honest, because we had a friend visit and we hosted for like a week and they had never been out to California. So we wanted to show them like the best time we could. So we went and did a bunch of things that were fun, got like to see a bunch of beautiful things, gave me a fresh perspective on just where I live, what I'm doing, what are my plans for my future. And it was really great. But simultaneously, I haven't posted a new video in like almost 2 weeks. And some people would say that's a terrible idea. Well, I would agree. But I'm also not going to, like, there's been so many other things happening that I'm not allowing that pressure that really no one else is putting on me except myself to like overtake what I'm doing. And I love too what you were saying about seasons, because I've heard it said before, like life and like work seasons or, you know, creative work, it is like the seasons of our calendar year. So it's like summertime, you work, you work, you work. There can be a harvest in fall, then winter, things go dormant for a while. Then in the springtime, things start to bloom again, and then you work, and then it's this like whole cycle of things. And I could see it in my own life with YouTube. I can see it with freelance stuff where there are those times where you're working your butt off and you're maybe not seeing like the benefits of it right now, but further down the road, like something starts to spring up and it's like, oh, okay, we get to reap this harvest right now. Like and I'll say too, for anybody who's a creator on YouTube, a lot of this stuff too can kind of come up to chance. Like I posted a video like back in July that literally had zero, like close to zero views. But then right at the turn of this year, all of a sudden it just started getting like ranked higher. And so now it's one of my better performing videos on my channel. And it kind of came out of nowhere. So you just never know, like kind of the seeds you plant today is the harvest you reap tomorrow. And, you know, just always give it your best. Like just understand that, hey, maybe this thing's not going to hit or like pop off until 6 months from now. And then you can start to reap that harvest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And again, I talked about this a little bit on my last live stream. Same sort of thing happened to me where I posted the video and then a little bit later it just really started to ramp up. And so just, if you're in that sort of a YouTube situation right now, like you just never know when stuff can really start to take off. So don't grow weary of, making good stuff and doing your best with it. So I want to hop over to this one last practical step, which is work smarter, not harder. This is a huge thing for me. This has become really sort of like a motto for my whole workflow in my life recently, is like, I want to get more efficient. I want to, I think a lot of times in the pursuit of excellence and, art and all of that stuff, creatives tend to really spend a lot of time in the details. We spend a lot of time perfecting the, because we want the best, we want it to be amazing, and we end up comparing it to everybody else. And, we get into our heads a lot because, we care about our craft, right? But one thing I'm trying to get better at is just like, how can I approach this in less of like, I want this to be whatever, but instead I want to work smarter, not harder. So for me, it's like, rather than spending, 3 hours on YouTube's music libraries looking through for a song, I might try to invest in something like Soundstripe, where I'm able to filter through my songs quick and get and good to go. And it takes me 10 minutes instead of 3 hours, right? Because who knows, if you edit videos, music picking can be something that takes a lot sometimes. But again, it's just like, I don't need the perfect song, because that doesn't really exist. I just want something that's going to be good for the job at hand. And then I can spend 3 hours editing and getting a bunch of videos done versus just, browsing a music library. So again, these are thoughts that as you go through, how can you maximize your time? Because if you can work smarter, not harder, you'll have more time to accomplish the stuff at hand. You'll get faster at it. You'll get more efficient at it. And the burnout will be less likely to enter into your lifestyle and life. So that's a little bit about the work smarter, not harder. Zac, do you have anything to say to that? With some tips for that on efficiency or just working smarter, not harder?
Yeah. I think even with that, just some of the more practical stuff too. Like if you're shooting video, like try to like nail your exposure, try to nail your white balance, like all those like practical things. Make sure your audio is not peaking. Like these are all things that we can do ahead of time before we even get to editing. But if you can do it properly ahead of time, then you're not gonna have to worry about it so much in the editing process. So you got it all settled, done properly in camera. Cool. That's smart. It's going to save you a lot of time. So that way you don't have to work hard to like try to recover something and try to make it better than like what it was originally. But this is also like, that's why I use LUTs for editing. That's why I use presets for
Huge.
photo
Yeah,
editing.
absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
and I not to say like you shouldn't know how to edit your stuff or like you only rely on LUTs or presets, but these are tools that if you use them right, they can help you be more efficient in what you do. And then that will make your productivity go a lot smoother. It'll make things a lot better because like, I think sometimes depending on like what you're doing, you feel like, oh, I have to have like the best color grade or the best sound design, whatever for the content, but you don't really like the main thing is just having really good content. And then just Ben, I know I've talked to you about this, but just making the content very consumable and making it easy for the viewer to listen to watch. So I think just doing those simple practical things, realizing this is not a huge Hollywood production. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. Like you could go watch Ben's video. How do you take good video or good photo with your phone? That's all you really need. And it could do a lot with that.
Yeah, I think that's something we all get caught up with in this camera and photo video world. We always get caught up on like what's the newest, what's the best, what's the biggest baddest thing out there. And at the end of the day, as long as, especially for YouTube content, like as long as your videos are easy to consume by the viewer, they can watch it, it's easy on the eyes, they can hear it, it's easy to absorb the information and the content, then you're in a great spot, right? So just utilizing lighting to kind of make everything look well and utilizing some good quality audio and, and a camera that, can be a good enough resolution. Even phones are great. There's a lot of things now you can dive into getting better gear to maximize and work smarter, not harder, right? So there's that aspect of it, but you don't always need like red cameras and all of this stuff that some people do. And if they do that and they love that, that's cool. But you know what? For me, I'd rather not. So because I don't want to work with those files. That's not efficient for me. So yeah, again, so that's a little bit about Creative Burnout. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this so far. If you do, let me know in the chat. We just enabled super chat. So if you want to do that, that's cool. We're actually going to be moving to a little bit of Q&A time right now. So we're getting into the Q&A. So if you guys have questions, let me know in the comments. In the meantime, we're just going to be chatting. Let me just kind of scroll through this a little bit. I thought I saw some earlier. So we'll start with those as we're getting into this Q&A. Here we go. Here's a good one. All right. So do you think getting off track from your original vision can lead to burnout? What do you think, Zach? What are your thoughts?
Kind of a yes and no. I welcome the spontaneous and kind of the things that are kind of like happy accidents. Like I just did a video about RGB lighting, and I mentioned how I was just experimenting, like something that was not really on script, if you will. And I ended up creating like this fun little like customized light trail transition thing. So that wasn't really in the vision originally for the video, but it was something that added to it. And to me, it didn't add stress. It didn't burn me out. It actually fueled me and it got me more excited about it. But I think it is good to know, like, keep the main thing. Like what's the main topic? Like, is your main topic, I'm going to teach you how to like whatever the best camera settings for low light or something. I don't know. I'm just making it up. But then if that turns into something entirely different, like even if it's in the same realm, it's like, how do you pose somebody, or how do you, you can just easily get off course that way. So I think just keep the main thing. and make sure you can accomplish that, but then allow some room for the spontaneity and for some, just different things to happen, because you might be pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. I think in some ways, yeah, it depends on maybe how far you stray from your original vision, but at the same time, I think it's good to be open-minded to allow vision to kind of adapt and change as you grow, because you'll enter into new seasons, you'll enter into new phases, and as you do that, your vision, maybe that you started with, maybe you reach it, maybe you achieve it, and now you have new vision to look ahead, right? So I think if you get too far away from your original kind of foundations of who you are, that's maybe where you can start to get into some stuff. And that's why we talk all the time about knowing your why, right? So know your why, don't stray too far from that, but at the same time, be open to fresh vision and fresh things. All right, we have another question here from Tiluk. Does DaVinci have better color grading presets? Not really a creative burnout question, but we can talk a little bit about some color grading presets. So my thoughts with this is, I think DaVinci is a great program. For me, I use Color Finale inside of Final Cut, which I love. And I think it's just kind of figuring out what works best for your workflow. Again, going back to that whole idea of work smarter, not harder. Is it better? Maybe. Is it better for you? I don't know. That's the question. If you're looking for what can do the most, or what can,
Right.
They can all kind of do a lot of the same stuff. So there's, I will say that. And honestly, presets in general, that's just talking about DaVinci versus other things as a program. Presets which you're talking about LUTs, right? That was your next question, right. Or LUTs. LUTs can usually be applied in any program. So it doesn't matter if you're in DaVinci or Color Finale or, Premiere. If you have a LUT, usually you can apply it with anything. And, I think that's a good thing to know. So great question. Great question. All right. Any other questions, guys? We got any other questions in the chat? Q&A, talking about creative burnout, or really just anything YouTube related? Let us know. Zach, do you have any questions in the meantime? What are your thoughts with all this? We're trying StreamYard, so this has been pretty good so far. What are your thoughts, Zach?
I think it's been fantastic. I think it's really good. I think too, even like kind of with that last question, and just kind of piggybacking off what you said, Ben, like just, it's really good to just know what works for you. Like I get questions all the time, like, what do you edit your videos in? Well, I use Final Cut. And then I personally just use the basic Final Cut, like color grading stuff. I know you used the what's the name? Color Finale plugin.
Yeah.
And that's totally cool. Like my biggest thing is like, if people see your work, let's say they want to hire you or they want to subscribe to your channel, the thing that they're not probably thinking first in their mind is, oh man, I wonder what they color grade with, or like, I wonder what program they use to do this. And I mean, certainly some people want to know like cameras and stuff, but it's just finding what works for you and really using what's in your like hands already. Like, what do you already have? Like, get the most out of that. Maybe it's a older Canon Rebel T3i or something, and like you just learn the limits and how you can get the most out of that particular setup, and then you can build upon that, find out what your needs are, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that you mentioned a T3i too. That was my first DSLR camera, and it really helped me build my business, honestly. So, all right, we got another question from Luke. Is Canva good for designing like a pro? Zach, I feel like you do a lot more design work than I do nowadays. So what are your thoughts on Canva?
Yeah, so Canva is a good starting place. And I think you can get well, I guess it kind of depends on what do you define as pro. Like, we've got pro everything, like iPhone 11 Pro, MacBook Pro, like there's so many pro things, but Canva is a great starting place. I would suggest, like, again, it's kind of like, do you get good results in the endpoint? Cool. Maybe you use Canva, maybe you pay $10 a month or whatever it is for Photoshop. Personally, I use Photoshop. I feel like that's like industry standard between that and Adobe Illustrator for more like illustration type stuff. So I personally use Photoshop. I think you can do a lot more with it. You get a lot more flexibility. With Canva, you're a little limited, I think, with some of your like export settings and customization through there. But I will say it is nice that they have kind of those predetermined like templates that you can just kind of drag and drop images in, just choose a color and just kind of run with it. So I think whatever works best for you, go with it. It's a great starting point, if nothing else.
Yeah. And again, I think there's times where I think I use Photoshop as well, and I feel like there's definitely times where I gravitate towards Canva, especially for quick stuff on my phone, because it's just easy, right? Like if you just want to add text on top of an image for, a post or something, sometimes it's just easier to use Canva because it's quick and, it's kind of more dedicated for that type of a thing. So it's just kind of like, to answer your question, for designing like a pro, that depends on what type of pro you're looking at. If you're looking at like a pro influencer or pro YouTuber, maybe, yeah, it could be great. But if you're looking at like I want to be a pro designer where I'm creating custom graphics and stuff like that, then no, I would say that's probably not the way to go. Learn Photoshop. It can do a lot more. But it all just depends on what sort of pro niche you're talking about, because Canva can do a lot of great stuff and it's easy to use and it's great. So yeah, let's keep moving on. Looking at some of the questions. Let me see. I'm gonna take this one for a second.
Go for it.
By AKT Zone. How to color grade like a pro in KineMaster. I don't know what that is, but I will speak to the whole idea of color grading like a pro. Color grading is subjective in a lot of ways. So you could look at a pro color grader and you could look at another pro color grader and they would tell you completely different things. I think at the end of the day, get your foundations down. So the idea of color grading is you have your original shot and sometimes you need to correct it. And then you're going to add some style to it. A lot of ways that we do it is by using a LUT, which is essentially a preset. And then you want to fine tune it to your liking. So you follow those 3 steps. And in my opinion, that's how you color grade like a pro. And honestly, just the fact that you're looking into color grading is going to be probably placing you in a higher tier than a lot of people out there, because a lot of people just don't even think about doing that. Right. So awesome for you. Again, it depends on what sort of pro. Are you doing movies? Are you doing YouTube? Are you doing, think about that type of stuff. Try to find people in your interests and in your niche that are doing it and see if they have tutorials on it. What are your thoughts on color grading? Okay, so he's saying KineMaster is an Android application. Well, that explains why I don't know it, because I don't have an Android phone. So there you go. But Zach, what are your thoughts on this color grading question?
Yeah, well, you nailed it. Like color grading is definitely subjective. There are some like hard and fast rules that you should just kind of like be aware of, like when it comes to like exposure, knowing like where your black point is, knowing where your white point is when something is clipping in either direction. I think that's a really important thing to know. Understand too proper exposure for skin tones. Like many video editors, they have what's called a vector scope. Kind of looks like a color wheel, and then it gives you this line where it's basically showing you where most all skin tones go in that similar like line. And those are just good like starting points. And then based off of that, like then you can start to have fun with changing things around. I mean, I always kind of say in moderation, unless you're doing something like Hollywood or Blockbuster, but it's totally, like you had said, Ben, it's totally subjective. I also saw too, someone had posted a question about like, what's a good like book to read about color. So I used to actually work at an art store, and I like totally dove into like color theory and just how colors interact with each other. So I would encourage you just like look up basic color theory, your primary, your secondary, tertiary colors, the analogous colors, how it all works. I actually broke a little bit of this down in my RGB lighting video, which was a ton of fun because I still have all this knowledge from like that old job that I just don't use quite as often.
Right.
but then it makes its little appearances here and there. There's a bunch of cool people who do stuff. Like there's this old guy who's like really awesome. His name's Robert Burridge, and he talks a lot about color theory. He does some pretty cool paintings. Just kind of like learn the basics of a color wheel. How do colors interact, complementary, and all that type of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's so much great content available on YouTube, sites like Skillshare. There's a lot of great places to find that stuff. Going into a new question, kind of shifting gears. I saw earlier. All right. Let's see. Truth be told, allegedly, is there any intro template apps that you can use editing with the iPhone? In my experience and just in my research, one of the best apps for editing on an iPhone or an iPad that I've come across is called LumaFusion. So definitely go check that out. I think you'll be amazed with what you can do with that. And we're going to go ahead and shift gears and move on. All right, let's see. It's Katie. And how do you reach your audience without promoting? Like, I know my content would be much more appreciated by Americans and Indians as I sing English. Cool. So how do you reach your audience without promoting? I don't think you do reach your audience without promoting. So that's my thought on that. And that's really where I kind of want to focus this. It doesn't really matter like who your audience is and who you want them to be and all that stuff. You're going to have to promote, right? Because at the end of the day, and I say this a lot, even with YouTube stuff. And if you want to find out more about my thoughts, check out my YouTube workflow series part 3, where I talk about the need to promote. I use social media platforms and link them all together. I kind of cross promote, right? So no one's necessarily going to care to look up your stuff if they don't know who you are. And the way that they get to know who you are is because you initially have to promote it. You share it with a friend. You share it with on social media, and you can get into like boosting posts and doing all this type of stuff and marketing it and, using different platforms to promote to each other. So whatever platform is your highest audience, like, for a while, Instagram was mine because I did it for years before YouTube. And so I was able to promote my YouTube stuff on Instagram and vice versa. So definitely you will have to promote, promote yourself. Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to grow, you have to do some form of self-promotion. I mean, I guess even technically posting a video is some form of self-promotion.
Correct.
So there's always some level of it. But I think too, it's important to understand, like even different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you may have different audiences. Like it's not going to always be the same person on each platform. TikTok, this type of stuff. Like I used to work for a company where it was like Facebook was mostly like a male demographic in their mid 30s. Instagram, like there was a ton of people like from India and the Philippines. So I think it just kind of depends on where your content like resonates the most. And then like making sure that you have content that's searchable, that people are actually looking for. So like if you're wanting to have American viewers, maybe you have to do some type of American music, like or popular American music, and then maybe do it in a timely fashion. And then you do a cover of this whatever famous pop song that's going on right now. Then odds are you'll probably get more American viewers. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Michaela coming in with a super chat. Awesome. Super fun. All right, cool. All right, here's a great question. What do you think about Filmic Pro? I haven't used Filmic Pro much. I believe Filmic Pro is a great mobile app. I like the Moment app. It's a little bit cheaper, does a lot of the same stuff. So again, I mainly do shoot on a mirrorless camera. I've done some mobile tutorials and plan to do more soon, but I'll look more into some thoughts on it, but it's great from what I can see. You can do a lot with it. All right, so moving on from there. Oh, this looks like an interesting question. Is it good to invest in camera with flat color profiles for learning color grading, or invest time to learn basic color grading with GoPro flat videos? Still entry level, love from India. That's a great question. So my thought process with that is, I think you're good to go by messing with the GoPro. I think that will be plenty to get you to learn a little bit about it. And again, you don't need flat profiles to color grade. You can color grade standard footage as well, but flat profiles will give you a bit more dynamic range and information to work with. So I use GoPro shots in some of my stuff, even some of our wedding films. Occasionally we'll have some little GoPro shots here and there. And I do use the GoPro flat profiles when I do that, just because you can push them a little more. So yeah, I don't think you need to go out and buy a fancy camera with all that's flat profiles. The GoPro already has them. So definitely you can learn a lot just messing with those. All right. Let's see. What are your thoughts on that, Zach? What are your thoughts?
I think, just going back to that notion of just learning what you have and just trying to do the most with what's in your arsenal right now. And I think knowledge is a really good thing to do, to gain and like actually work with it now, because then you might find out like, maybe I don't want to do color grading, or
right.
That's actually a lot of work. Maybe I just want something that's like good straight out of camera and minimal editing is required. So yeah, just start with what you got. I think it's a really, really good way to go.
Awesome. We have another question from the Intelligent Gamer. Did you do any active research to find your audience? I think that's a really interesting question. I have an interesting answer for it too. So, interesting that you're wondering about researching to find your audience. For me, I think the researching has to do with, for me, I do photo video, right? So I've watched a ton of photo video content on YouTube, on Skillshare, on a bunch of different places. And I was that audience, really, right? So I was sort of who I was a little further back is my audience, right? I'm someone who's wanting to learn photo video. And so whatever it is that you're interested in, you're passionate about that thing, probably the same way that your audience is. So I don't think you really need to research your audience, because chances are you've already done the research because you've been your audience, right? So you've kind of gone through tutorials and gone through different steps to learn things. And now you're just that extra step ahead of where your audience is at. So you can kind of add value to them and help them get to your level faster, right? So that's, in a way, that's sort of what I'm taking away from your question. And again, it looks like you're a gamer, right? So I don't know what games you play. Let me know in the comments if you're still here. But if you're gaming, if you're doing something like Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever, the nice thing is your audience is sort of there. I would highly recommend niching and doing tip videos and doing all sorts of stuff. But I don't think you need to research too much to your audience. Zach, what are you taking from this question here?
Yeah, exactly what you said. I'm able to check what other channels my YouTube audience watches, and it's all the stuff that I watch. So it's Matty Hapoya, it's Think Media, Gerald Undone, Potato Jet, it's Ben Johnson, all these people that represent. Yeah. It's all these people that I already watch their content. And so it's not, people would say sometimes oh, you have maybe you have a Peter McKinnon vibe, or you got whatever. And I'm like, well, that totally makes sense, because I consumed the mess out of his videos when I was learning, and still do, still love that stuff. And I learned from it. And that's how I learned all the stuff that I do now. So it's just funny. Your audience is probably they'll find you because you're, like you said, Ben, it's just kind of who you were maybe just a little further back.
Yeah. And you just always want to be, kind of that. If you're just one step ahead, then you can add a lot of value to people. And so, take that for what it's worth. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this next question, because I think it's pretty good. We're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon, but just a couple more questions. Callie says, how do you find the willpower to move forward when the videos you put up sometimes do worse than the ones before? And those aren't even hitting double digits. I think that is something we all struggle with, right? Even myself, it's I'll post a video and then I feel good about it. It's doing well. It's performing well. YouTube gives you your kind of top 10 recent videos. How's it doing? And then I'll put a lot of work into the next video and I'll post it. And it's it's performing 8 out of 10. It's not doing as good. And I feel a little discouraged from that because like, oh, this is my newest thing. I put so much work into this and it's not performing well. So how do you find the willpower? This is an interesting one. I think, again, remembering your why and talking a little bit about what we talked about before. The metrics and the analytics are great tools to measure, how well things are doing and what you should do more of. But when you talk about the willpower, that's kind of like your overall why, like, why do you do this and all that stuff. So even for myself on the past live stream, I talked about that lighting video that now has 1 million views, had double-digit views for 2 months. And that was the second video I ever did. And so you just really don't know sometimes that stuff could actually ramp up that you just sort of, weren't even thinking about or just kind of like passed by. You put a lot of work into it. It didn't do well. You kind of shoved it aside, moved on. But then it can come back to do really good. And that's why I said in the last stream, treat each video viral, which means put the amount of work that you should into it. Be proud of what you're doing so that if it does end up taking off, you're happy about that. And just stay consistent with it because, again, yes, sometimes videos won't do. You could talk to any YouTuber about this, I'm sure. Even some of the ones you were mentioning, Zach, it's like, yeah, they have the millions of views, and then they do one and it has like, it's not as many, and they feel discouraged about it. The same way that maybe you're getting, 200 views, it has 40 views, or whatever your metrics are. It can be discouraging, but you just have to push through. Know that it's not a reflection of who you are. It's not a reflection of your worth as a creator. It's not a reflection of your skill as a creator. It's just a reflection of how YouTube promoted it ultimately, and how your audience maybe resonated with it. And so it's good to keep track of that stuff. Maybe you do a video and it didn't do as good because it's not really at all what your channel normally does. Maybe you veered off that track and your audience isn't resonating with it as well. So, be smart about that stuff. Like for me, I do a lot of lighting videos. People like the lighting videos, right? Zach, people like your live stream videos. They love the live stream videos. And so, if I do a lighting video or if Zach does like more of a live stream video, it will probably do a little bit better than some of the other stuff because audience is more accustomed to it right now. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stay in that lane, but it does mean if I was to come out and do a cooking video, well, A, I wouldn't be very good at it. And then B, I think that the audience would be really thrown off because they're here for photo, video, content creation style content. So be aware of some of that stuff. Zach, what are your thoughts on this question? I love this question, Callie. It's really great. Yeah. It's something we all struggle with.
It's so good. And Ben, you hit so much of the stuff like the numbers don't define you as a creator. They don't define your skill. They don't define your value. It's just, sometimes it's just kind of up to chance. Like I'd mentioned about, with your lighting video, that was a 2-month period. The one video of mine, it's like a Lightroom mobile tutorial video. And I felt like I had completely wasted my time because it's a long video, but I go through like everything in detail on like the app and how you use it. And like, it got maybe 100 views up until the end of the year. And that was like a good 6 months. And then all of a sudden it's like, I guess YouTube decided to put it at the top or whatever. And it's, starting to hit better. So that, but then also understanding too, like YouTube, like make it what you want. Like I posted also a couple of vlogs and like knowing that I don't have a huge channel, and these vlogs may not be they're not the thing that's getting my big audience or the audience that I have now. So I'm going to just do this kind of like for me. And I'm going to be okay with that because I want to put out some content. I'm going to put this thing together. So like my wife and I did a little vlog trip for the new year, and I was very proud of it and I love it. And I actually could kind of care less whether or not a ton of people watched the video or liked the video or I got subscribers from the video. It just gave me value and it really fulfilled me. But then there are times where you always want to like have your previous video be like your best video to date. Like that should always be a goal, I feel like. But then people just may not watch it right away. And that is definitely discouraging, but you just have to keep pressing on. Like, as long as you're proud of the product that you put out there, like, I just keep telling myself like, okay, this video only got 250 views and it's been 2 weeks. But I'm proud of it. And I think one day it's probably going to resonate with somebody. Like, making my content evergreen, as I say. So that way it's relevant to somebody 5 days from now, 5 months from now, maybe 5 years from now. And kind of like keep that stuff in mind. Like you said, Ben, treat each video as it could be viral. And yeah, just as long as you're thrilled about it, as long as you're pumped about it, it's like, yeah, I would love if more people knew about it, but they just don't right now. But that's okay, because I'm proud of it. And I can still like hang my hat on that and say, yeah, I'm really cool with that video.
Yeah. And again, I love that. I think it's set that perspective, right? Of like, you know, say you have maybe 30 people who have seen your video, maybe you have 30 views. That's like a classroom in America. That's like a school classroom right there. If you have 100, that's a lot. If you have 500 views on something, you know, 1,000 views on something, I mean, that's huge. You're getting into like starting to get into arena sizes, right? So it's like, keep that perspective. Like, these are real people that are taking time to engage with your content. Every view matters. Every view counts. Don't compare yourself to people that have been doing it longer or have had success with it. You will get there if you stay there, stay consistent, stay doing what you love, because chances are other people are loving that stuff too. And if you're getting views, then you're resonating with someone and making a difference in somebody's life. And that is awesome. So as long as you keep your why, stay consistent, try not to get too stressed out about it. Don't get so overwhelmed with all this stuff. You can avoid burnout and ultimately keep pushing through and creating stuff that you love and that will be awesome for people to connect with. All right. So I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up. I will mention one other person, Asher. I do remember you from the last live. I also remember you from like all my videos because you always comment. Thank you for your support. So awesome, guys. I've loved this. Zac, thank you so much for joining today. Again, if you guys want to connect with Zac, it's at Zac Sopak on Instagram. Check him out on YouTube. You know, I appreciate your time here today. Again, if you guys want to connect with me, it's at Ben Johnson Creative. Hit me up on Instagram. You know, I love connecting with you guys in the DMs. We can really dive in a little bit further than the comments. If you guys are watching this on the replay, let me know your favorite part about the live stream in the comments. I'll reply to you. All right, guys. I love this. It's been a lot of fun. Zac, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Had a ton of fun.
All right, guys. We're going to catch you in the next one. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and as always, stay creative. Peace.